This is Mick and the Fat Man, living in the 70s, and they're talking music.
Welcome to Mick and the Fat Man. This is the Fat Man, and with me I've got Mick. G'day, Mick. How you doing?
I'm doing just fine, mate.
And what have you got planned for us today, mate?
Well, let's do something special tonight. We've talked about albums by some of our favourite artists. Tonight, let's talk about something that covered the whole period when we were growing up. A TV show called Countdown.
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 Countdown. Yep. What a show. What a show. What a part of our life it was growing up. How long did that show run for?
Mate, it ran for 14 years, from 1974, right smack dab in the time when we were just starting to come online, as it were, through to 87.
I don't think I watched any Countdown in 87, to be honest with you.
No, we were all grown up and sophisticated by then.
Yeah, indeed.
Maybe.
But we certainly were watching in 74, that is for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it was a show that I can recall that we used to religiously watch. Sunday evenings were sacred. We'd have to get home and we'd race around to your place, and your folks used to conspicuously hide because they didn't want to be hanging around all the young blokes watching that noisy pop music.
My old man basically thought that was all just shit music. In some cases he was right, mind you, but it was very common for us, and we used to sit on the velour lounge that was in our lounge room, and I had the rocker. I used to always have the rocker to sit on with the footstool on it, and we'd prepare ourselves with maybe a glass of soft drink, perhaps, and
later on some fizzing sherbets.
As time moved on, but I think realistically in 74 we were a little bit too young to be doing that sort of stuff. But it was an iconic show for us, I think.
It came in and it grew up with us.
Yeah,
I think, or we grew up with it.
Yeah. And the other show that was around at the time was Sounds Unlimited with Donny Sutherland. But that was sort of not really in a good time slot, was it? It was a Saturday morning program, and it went for 3 hours, so it was a bit of a marathon. And I think there's something that Countdown did that was a lot different to what Donny did, where he was playing the film clips. Countdown had live music on, and that was the thing that really made Countdown a different music program.
Look, when we were talking about it when we were tossing up whether to do one on Countdown, you came up with a really important point, and that was that it was ours, and it talked about Australian bands, and there was nothing else on the television or even the radio that talked about Australian bands.
And that was without doubt there. You know, they did have international acts, so the international acts that were either coming to Australia or were in Australia they would often appear on the show, but they always had live. The band playing live. They didn't actually play their instruments, and sometimes they sang, and sometimes they didn't sing. They just dubbed. They just mimed, but nonetheless, the person was there and doing their music, which was either top 40 or sometimes not top 40. You know, people like the Angels, but then there would be Lemon and what was it? Lemon and Lace? No, not Lemon and Lace. Lemon and Lace.
Gee, I'm interested.
Leather and lace.
Oh right, yes, okay.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of that bloke.
I wondered where that one was going to go.
Can't think of his name now. I know he runs the
Marty Rain.
Marty Rain runs the Red Cross now.
Yep.
He does.
I'm sure there's something in that for all of us.
Don't know where that came from, but it came from somewhere. And there was some, and Molly, of course. There was Molly, and I think probably a national disgrace in many cases. But nonetheless, I think the thing with Molly was that he was passionate about music, and he was a true believer in music. You know, this wasn't put on. He was really into music.
Yep.
he was he knew so much about music, and of course he was a producer. And I think his greatest claim to fame is, of course, The Real Thing, which I don't know when that came out, but early 70s, I guess.
Yep.
A very long time ago. But he was really passionate about music. He would interview bands, not particularly well, but he would interview them. And he would also travel overseas and get interviews with bands that were probably either releasing a new album or new single, and also probably coming to Australia. He would interview them all, and I think he probably had a bit of a reputation for being a bit of a nut job in the industry. But he, it was usually cringeworthy. A lot of his interviews, weren't they?
They were indeed. But you mentioned his reputation, and look, his interviews were a style all of their own. As Exhibit 1, ladies and gentlemen, I give you his interview with Prince Charles, and we'll come back to that one.
Fantastic.
But his passion was important, and because that show was unlike anything else in the world, it was modelled on Top of the Pops from the UK, but it was much more shambolic, and because of that, much more interesting than some of those prefab film clip shows from the UK. Anything from the US probably wasn't worth talking about because it just ran film clips.
But I think he used to get a lot of interviews with big artists because of who he was. He was Molly Meldrum, and I think his reputation was good, even though. And many times you saw the bands, someone like Blondie or someone like that, they'd be kind of laughing with him and a little bit at him as well, but they'd always do the interviews.
Yep. There was certainly a lot of people. His notable relationships with people like Elton John and Rod Stewart.
Do you remember when Elton got married? He was almost blabbering on the countdown. And I can imagine why, because what on earth are you marrying a woman for?
Molly was there.
And, of course, that's the other famous interview was with Iggy Pop, which was hilarious because Iggy was being, what would you say?
Off his tits.
Frivolous. he was just uninterviewable. No one would have interviewed him.
Yeah, it just couldn't be done.
No. But the music, and the thing is, they did break. They broke a lot of bands, as in they became famous famous in Australia at least, because of Countdown. And there was that one famous band that never appeared on Countdown throughout the life of Countdown, and that was Midnight Oil. And the story goes, I'm assuming this is right, but from my memory is that the band were booked to go onto the show. Their truck broke down, they got there late, and they weren't allowed on. So from that point on, they never played on Countdown. And even Molly, I believe, pleaded with them on air to come on, but they never did. So it was an interesting thing because I think it would have been the producers who would have been making sure these young kids turned up on time and all that sort of stuff. So when they became famous, they were in demand, and they could do whatever they damn well liked.
I don't think he had a great relationship with Cold Chisel either.
Oh, is that right?
Yep. But I'd be more than happy to hear the backstory on that one.
But they certainly were on there many times. As was Sherbet, of course.
Sherbet, much maligned, great band. Saw them live.
Strong musically. What did they call themselves when they went to the US?
Highway,
that's it. They shouldn't have.
No, it should have been Sherbet. Yeah.
And who else was on there a lot? Mark Holden.
John Paul Young,
Squeak. Singing, and of course, with that little point, people like AC/DC would have been on there.
Yes.
And what was the name of the band that the duo who wrote a lot of the Easy Beat songs and
Vander and Young.
Vander and Young.
Yes, yes.
What do they call? What they had a name they called themselves. It wasn't just Vander and Young were the writing team, but I can't remember what they called. Did they not have a band name? Maybe they did.
I thought it was Vander and Young.
Could have been. Down among the dead men.
Yep.
That was it.
Flash in the pan.
Flash in the pan. Thank you. There you go.
Absolutely.
I knew you'd come through. Deep in the dark depths of that mind.
Oh, dear. Yes, yes. God. Look, Countdown, for all that it's at the time it was fashionable to knock it and consider it unfashionable, we religiously watched it. We religiously got home on a Sunday night. Monday's conversation was, did you see them on Countdown last night? And there were so many Australian bands that perhaps they might have been successes by themselves, but Countdown played a part in their initial success in Australia. The Angels, I can remember them coming on in white shirts and thin black leather ties singing Am I Ever Going to See Your Face Again? It was almost a punk type of look. So so the promo people, the stylists, must have said, this is a good way for you to look, guys.
Yeah.
Split Ends were fairly regular on the program. And
Right from the very beginning, even.
absolutely, yeah.
When
yeah.
they were, bear no resemblance to what they did by the time they finished.
Yeah, because their costumes were very TV friendly or Countdown friendly. And I can remember once where you had Tim Finn, I think it was before Neil even joined the band, where the band was there purporting to take different roles in a classroom, and Tim Finn was the headmaster. It was bent. It was
That's
absolutely bizarre, but it was a wonderful thing, and it was really seeing Tim Finn cracking Eddie Rayner across the finger, Noel Crombie across the fingers. Yes, was really something else. And you wonder what's going on, guys.
Another one out of here, Jimmy and the Boys. What a band! I saw them live quite a few times at Caringbah Inn. They played there regularly, and they used to always do "Babies on Fire."
Oh yeah,
And
the Eno song.
And they used to have a baby doll, which used to be on fire. They used to set one on fire every time they did the song. It was really good, though. It was really good.
Yes. No wonder they wouldn't let his girlfriend talk to him.
What was his name? The singer,
Ignatius Jones,
who then became the artistic director for the Olympic Games. He did one part. He actually had one part of the show as the artistic director.
and the Sydney Festival, wasn't it?
Yeah. Actually, he did that for quite a while.
Yeah, I think there's something in that for all of us.
That's it.
That you can probably less said about that, the better. But who could forget Supernaut?
Well, I've always liked it both ways, haven't you? Eh?
Well, that's not the response I was expecting, but you know. but yeah, look, Supernaut were great, and Supernaut dressed up in their glam outfits were perfect.
Yeah,
for
that's
Countdown.
right. They did, didn't they?
They do it live, and the show always finished with a band live, an Australian band generally, or somebody touring, but more often than not Australian.
Yeah, indeed.
And Supernaut was perfect, singing "I Like It Both Ways," which is another one of those songs that you probably couldn't record these days.
I don't really remember whether Supernaut went on to anything fantastic, but it was fun.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Icehouse, Aussie Crawl, Mental as Anything, Mondo Rock, Men at Work, Angels, obviously. Here's one that comes. I'm looking at Wikipedia here. So, but the Ted Mullery Gang.
Jump in my car, baby.
Oh, Ted Mullery, eh?
Ted was one of the favourites because you could tell who Molly really got along with because Ted was a favourite and he was a regular host. You know, whilst Countdown's associated with Molly, they would regularly have artists, Australian and overseas, come on as the token host.
Yeah, because Molly went into sort of more the humdrum music stuff with his interviews and stuff like that. Pardon me. And Hush was another regular.
Of course, yeah, they were great. And we could talk about Hush when we talk about Australian bands live.
Yeah.
So some interesting crowd variations of their songs.
Now I'm just going to hopefully jog your memory a bit of some of the overseas bands that were on there. The Ramones. I don't remember seeing the Ramones personally, but
Me either.
I wish I could. I wish I could remember it because that would have been good.
Yeah.
Joe Jackson, there's a blast from the past.
Isn't it?
I quite like Joe Jackson.
Yeah.
He had a live album out years ago, which was very good.
Okay.
I don't remember what it's called, but it's a good album. Big something or other. Yeah.
Okay.
Duran Duran,
Yeah, yeah. They'd be tailor made for.
Elvis Costello were there.
Yeah.
Was there, I should say. And the Specials.
Hard to see the Specials being a countdown fit, but there you go.
Lena Lovitch.
Yep. Perfect.
Oh, well, there's some good stuff on here. Apparently, they wiped a whole lot of episodes. They had them on tape,
Yes.
and they reused the tapes for something else. Some old Neighbours albums, Neighbours things or something like that. But they lost about 100 episodes.
It's almost treason, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's terrible, really bad.
And the problem is that I don't think that you can go back and watch any quantity of Countdown from scratch.
No, I've watched a few little snippets on YouTube, and they're good fun. They're good fun, but I don't think you or I could sit down and watch a whole show because one of the things I used to always have the cringe, particularly the early stuff, the dancing. Remember the dancing? The girls, all their dancing, doing their really bad dancing like
The
we used to
studio
do.
audience.
Yes. Yes.
Well,
With their cardigans on and stuff like that.
oh, yeah. Quality plus.
It was great. Cyndi Lauper was on there. Yeah, she was. Actually, she was on there a bit. Yep. And Meatloaf, of course, he was there a couple of times.
Yeah, yeah. Always in wide shot.
Do you remember? Did you see him do the AFL Grand Final? Meatloaf.
No.
Oh, go and look it up on YouTube. Everybody out there, if you haven't seen Meatloaf do the AFL Grand Final from about probably 10 years ago, maybe something like that, it is the worst piece of music you will ever hear. And I don't know how much they paid it for him. It wouldn't have been cheap, but it was abysmal. And I highly recommend that you go and listen to it.
Wow. There's not many artists have actually survived playing their songs at the football grand finals. I don't know why they do it.
I don't know why anybody would do a football grand final, except for an excessive amount of money.
Yeah.
But for one thing, you're in one of those stadiums. You're in the middle of the stadium, sort of in the round, whatever you like to call it, which means you've always got your back to half of the audience. The sound is always abysmal. I saw Rolling Stones at the Homebush Stadium. I can't remember which tour it was. Like in the 2000s, and it was awful. It really was awful. The sound was just terrible. It just went washing round and round the stadium. Terrible. It was a big one of their biggest concerts they ever did. It was one they had. It was like about 7 stories high. The stage had all sort of coloured material on it, and the actual stage. At one point, they would all sort of come together in the middle, and were playing like an acoustic-y type of arrangement, and the whole front of the stage drove out into the middle of the ground, and they sat there and played about 3 songs in the middle of the ground, and then the thing drove back to the stage.
Sounds awful. I've seen the Stones, but I can't remember where it was. I've got the sports ground in my mind.
Yeah, no, this was at the Homebush Stadium. Now, if you ever get the opportunity to go to the Homebush to watch a band, don't. That's my strong. And I wouldn't go to the sports. Well, you can't go to the other one now. They knocked it down.
Yeah.
They haven't rebuilt anything, but they did knock it down.
But it's a very nice hole.
I did hear One Direction there. Remember, I lived in Paddington for a while. We lived basically across the road, and One Direction were there. And we were coming home from somewhere, and I said to the missus, "Look at all the people standing on top of their car outside the stadium," and we realised. And then what was happening was there was a practice session for One Direction on, and so we got home, and you could hear the music in the background, and all these 12-year-olds were standing on their parents' cars trying to see One Direction. I mean, it was bad, but there was a lot of 12-year-olds around Paddington at that particular day. It was really weird.
Well, look, as Molly used to say, Do yourself a favour.
Do yourself a favour. Get to see One Direction. I don't think you can see One Direction anymore.
Why?
I think they broke up.
No, my son tells me they're going to reform,
Thank God.
but I think COVID's got in the way.
Which was he one of the singers?
Yeah,
I was COVID-19.
yeah, that's right. Yes.
I was COVID-19. You remember that song?
Oh yes, yeah, I can remember that one. Yeah, oh, dear.
Red Gum.
Yes,
They were on there.
a litany of Australian music.
Fantastic stuff. All right, that's a little wander through Countdown. We might call it quits now, and we'll revisit Countdown as the years go on. Thanks very much, everybody, and see you next time.